Right. We are ready now for the first of our roundtable sessions on regional open science advancements, moderated by Dr. Emily Chainovsky.
Excellent. So welcome to our second session today and our first of the roundtables. Today's session really thinks about how open science in higher education institutions and research communities is a highly complex and rapidly evolving landscape, and there are many ways of transforming knowledge into practical action. And the purpose of this roundtable is to explore current regional advancements and strategies for development and the implementation of open science policies and practices. So what we're going to start with is a brief introduction from our panelists here in the room, and we've lost one panelist up top, but Professor Ramirez left, but hopefully he'll be back in a minute. So we'll have an introduction from our panelists, and then we'll have a few questions. And once again, to all of my panelists, thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate your insights and really look forward to the discussion. What I hope I'll do is ask one or two questions, but really take them as guidelines, and feel free to talk to each other. No interrupting, play nice, but feel free to talk to each other to respond so that we can have a very fluid and free-flowing discussion about this important topic. So we shall start. Professor Ezzat Salama, would you be able to give a brief introduction about yourself and your science interests? Thank you.
Yes, can you hear me? Yes, okay.
Yes.
Good morning, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity actually to speak in this very important discussion. I'm Amr Salama. I'm the Secretary General of the Association of Arab Universities. I was the Minister of Higher Education and Scientific Research in Egypt a long time ago. The Association of Arab Universities was established in 1964 by a decree from the Council of the Arab League. We regard our association is a platform for the Arab universities. We have more than 450 Arab universities in our association. Represents 22 Arab countries, of course, as you know. The association is devoted to advancing higher education in the Arab world. The association focuses on research, scientific publishing, digital transformation, capacity building, quality assurance, gender equity, and women empowerment in education, and enhancing student learning. The association as well, our role here our role in advancing open science is, of course, rooted in fostering collaboration, increasing accessibility, and ensuring that the research product by Arab universities is globally visible and impactful. I think I don't want to take much more of your time, but this is quite a brief about the association and what we are doing here.
Thank you. And Dr. Yousef Tourman of the Arab States Research and Education Network, could you give a brief give a brief introduction of your organization?
Yeah. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Dr. Amr. Good morning, Qatar. I'm Yousef Tourman, the Managing Director of the Arab States Research and Education Network, ASREN, so we'll keep hearing ASREN. So it's the Arab States Research and Education Network. We started in 2011 with 6 Arab members. Now we have 16 Arab member countries. Our main role is to establish the pan-Arab infrastructure for research and education, associated with services, with expanding knowledge to the communities, they can better work jointly and utilize the technology for their research and education systems. When it comes to open science, we have been I can say that we are among the main conveners for the open science in the Arab region with several projects and several initiatives. We have several projects which I will come maybe later in the discussion. So I think we need to have a convener at least for the open science activities, which is, I think, ASTRIN is taking this part in open science matter. This, to make it short now, we have a lot to speak.
Thank you. We've got a lot of ground to cover and some very juicy topics coming up. Dr. Lamis, could you tell us a bit about the Africa Reproducibility Network?
Thank you very much, and welcome to everyone. It's nice being here with you. So the African Reproducibility Network is kind of still at its infancy. We are less than 1 year old. We'll complete 1 year next November. But so far, we've been able to reach about 29 African countries with about more than 300 individuals within our network. And these more than 300 individuals are coming from about 170 institutions, universities and research institutions all across Africa. And yeah, I think the appetite for open science is big, and this is why we are happy to see that our community is, growing each day bit by bit. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Lamis. And just to say, Dr. Lamis's organization is one of our members, and Dr. Haider is here to represent one of our other member organizations. Can you tell us a bit about the organization and its engagement with open science?
Sure. Hello, everyone. I'm Hadir Kamel, assistant professor at El Wasl University and the library director. The same, I am one of the member of the Council of Arab Society for Knowledge Management. We have published 4 free open access journals, and that's all.
Thank you. And Kamran, well, he's already introduced himself, so you sort of know who he is anyway, but if there's anything else to add. Yeah.
So just for the record for this session, for those who've just joined online, so I come in from the angle from the Forum of Open Research and the forum itself in order to enable that platform for dialogue, discussion, exchanging ideas around open science initiatives, grassroots policy in the region, and supporting the forum, publication of related journals in the field, and other activities that we do around advancing awareness around predatory conferences, predatory practices in publishing. So one of the ways that we are supporting the regional movement and the regional activities is through the forum that we are all here today in collaboration with Dr. Emily. So this is our angle.
Thank you. So the first question I'm going to ask, and again, I'll ask one person and then everyone else feel free to jump in and share ideas and bridge the discussion, is, given where we are now, we all know what's been happening. We had a lovely, very, very appropriate primer session this morning on where we are with certain things and where we should be and where we really should be striving for. Dr. Yousef, are there any major projects or developments your organization is working on relating to the advancement of open science which you would like to share?
Yes. Okay, now I think ASTRIN has been again and again more involved in open science since it was started. However, recently, I can say that we are proud, actually 2 projects. One project is now on the ground, and so it has been signed with the European Commission. The idea behind this project is it has several work packages. What I will focus on the work package related to open science. So this activity actually comes into 3 dimensions. The first dimension is the capacity building and knowledge sharing among the all the levels policy. Now with technical, who will be doing the provision and data repositories. It comes in another dimension where we are establishing now the regional harvesting technology, so that we want to provide harvesting infrastructure and the platforms to harvest all the open data repositories in the Arab region. And we started this with our colleagues here are also leading on this. The other dimension is that we want to call following the models like African Open Science Platform and the European Open Science Cloud. We are having a pilot to establish and start the Arab Open Science Cloud. So what do we mean by the Arab Open Science Cloud? It's not only the cloud itself but it's about a mechanism so that we can say that we do open science. We need to see what are the mechanisms for open science in terms of service provision, connecting open data repositories as I just mentioned. Sorry. And also we want to see how can comes into service-oriented open, like we want to work with journals or publications and providers so that they will provide the service to our community through our platform or this cloud. In addition to maybe the cloud comes to wider than open science, we want to provide computing services like applications as a service and tools, access to instruments. All this will come through this cloud. So in terms of open science, I believe we have now, we say that we will be the regional convener for open science services through this cloud. There is a lot of more on that. There are much details, but in terms of high level description, this is what we are. Now we are proud that we have the project. We are working with a wider project with some colleagues. I don't have the permission to announce that now, but we are working on an Arab umbrella for everything related to open science, comes to science communities, establishing again the right infrastructure and tools for open science. This project, I'm working on that. I think we can announce it early next year, maybe Q1 next year. This is much wider than the project that I just mentioned. It also includes like engagement with the policy, and it will be like among the recognized by the League of Arab States as the official organization for leading the open science activities in terms of region. So when it comes to the national, I think it depends on the country and the policy and what do they want to do, who will be the right owner or the right stakeholder for to be engaged or the convener. I believe the issue is not about the stakeholders. There are many, you are all stakeholders, but who will take the main stake actually? Who will be holding the stakes of all of that? It will be something like the convener, which I believe that ASEAN is doing a good role in that, in cooperation with the Association of Arab Universities, of course, and the other arm of the research in the Arab region, which is the Federation of Arab Scientific Research Councils. Yes, I think I will not take much more, but I still have something to speak maybe in the second round.
Thank you. Professor Amr, obviously you're collaborating very closely with ASRAN. There's a lot of projects underway, but also you work with the Arab Association, well, you run the Arab Association of Universities and work with a lot of universities in an awful lot of countries across the region. Are there any projects that align with what Dr. Yousef has just said? And how are you looking to encourage people within your stakeholder group to participate in these open science projects?
The link is not that good. Actually, I cannot hear your question quite well. Are you talking about major projects? I think I thought that I heard about that. You are asking about the major projects in our organization?
Yes, and
yes.
How they...
Okay, so let me say that the Association of Arab Universities is currently advancing several major projects, actually, aimed at promoting open science in the region. One significant initiative is the development of Arab Open Science Platform, which will serve as a central repository for research data and publications, of course, and collaborative tools, ensuring greater accessibility and transparency. Additionally, we are working on regional policy frameworks that encourage data sharing and open access publishing across universities and research institutions. And actually, in the very near future, we will announce about the project, but I can't say about it just now. But very soon we'll have some good information about that. These projects aim to strengthen collaborative networks among researchers, increase the visibility of regional research on a global scale, and support innovation through open knowledge exchange.
Thank you. Dr. Lamis, I know you said you've got a very new initiative, but I also know you've got a very sort of active and forward-looking program of activities. Could you perhaps share some information about what you're planning?
Yeah, definitely. I think what Aaron is trying to do sort of merged perfectly with what our esteemed panelists just said. I think all of the big organizations are currently working on infrastructure, on creating the tools. And what Aaron is trying to do is, train the researchers and the grassroots, people in these institutions so that when these tools and infrastructures are available, then, everyone is just ready to go. Everything is set. You don't need to spend more time training the researchers. And I think this will save a lot of time. So for us at AREN, as I said, our main goal is training on the different open science aspects of their importance. So we have a lot of projects, but the main two I think that I could speak about is the local network training leads program, where we actually opened a training for a very intensive training program for African researchers working within African universities and research institutions. And we made them go through a very intensive training in all aspects of open science. And we are now in that next phase where these, local network leads will have like more of a snowball effect, and they will go and teach all that they've learned to their communities, to their local communities. One other project that we are working on is called the working groups, where we invited our community members from different nationalities or different disciplines. For example, we have the librarian working group. And the idea of these working groups is for these individuals to, first of all, identify the challenges, identify what would work for them and what would not, so that we, when it comes to policies and infrastructure, we don't invest in things that would eventually not be used by the target audience. So it's very important for us at AREN to identify what works and what doesn't work, because not everything that the global north is using when it comes to open science would work for us, in Africa and in the Arab region. So this is also a very important aspect that we're trying to work on, identifying these challenges.
Thank you, Dr. Lamis, and I agree. It's something we, obviously, for those of you who know us here at Form, it's that sort of integration of grassroots knowledge, building the sort of core foundations for when policy-making activities by large regional, big-scale entities do come into effect. It's so important, as is the localization and the I guess the reproducibility, which aligns very nicely with what Dr. Halal was saying in the keynote, the sort of applicability of this content. So on the sort of Arab knowledge management side, what are you guys working on around open science, and what have you got in store?
Okay, I will first say that we publish 4 open access journals, 3 of them in library and information science, and 1 in designing. It's freely, it's indexed in Bank al-Ma'rifa and Knowledge Bank and Dar al-Manzouma. And it is not only what we do, we also have our first conference from 2 months. And we do a lot of workshop in teaching students and librarians new skills to enhance what they do in institutions and libraries.
Thank you. And so it's really helpful to see a landscape of what everyone's doing, because I think, we're all very active in different fields, and sometimes we don't always know what people are doing in other countries or other areas of study. So it's very helpful to hear what everyone's doing. But taking that sort of bigger step back, you know, there's 22 Arab states, there's what, 440 million-ish people in that massive community. And when recognizing the diversity of stakeholder groups and different local and regional circumstances and resources across the whole Arab world, how can we encourage long-term collaborative advancement, and what are some of the potential routes to partnership and collaboration for everyone today? And I'd like to direct that to Kamran to start.
Thanks very much, Emily. So when it comes to collaboration, it was mentioned in the keynote by Dr. Hilal earlier as well. So bodies like the Arab League of Universities, that would be, the perfect setting in order to bring all the universities from the region together. There are independent regional activities. There's from each, country with their initiatives, but that sort of pan-regional collaboration to establish the policies across the region, to implement those policies across the region, that's something that needs to be worked on a bit more. And I think this whole setting as a forum for exchanging ideas, discussing, collaborating, brainstorming, bringing everyone together, our aim was to facilitate. Our aim has always been to be able to provide that platform for discussion, the facilitation, and the testament to have the event after 3 years with all the different participants from 80 countries, with all the involvement of the different stakeholders is a testament to that. So we very much look forward to that, forming that collaboration, to take the work that is done in some countries, some examples. I know Dr. Amar is working on some bigger projects across the region to share some of the regional examples. I think it's, the key for me is that collaboration among the stakeholders and having that platform to be able to discuss and be able to implement some of the changes that have been identified throughout these at least 3 forums, the monthly community activities, which will continue.
Oh, it's back again. Sorry, battery flickering on and off. So, Dr. Yousef, I know regional advancement and collaboration is at the key of everything you do as an organization. Would you like to build on what Kamran said and talk about how we can plan and really facilitate cross-regional multilateral collaboration?
Again, I think the idea we have, let me repeat what I just mentioned, because I want to continue to build on that. Everyone here is a stakeholder, everyone is engaged. And I believe everyone brings even some, I can see some, let's say, initiatives or activities. They add open science to their activities, but do they what do you want to do for open science or with open science? This is one thing. And again, I think we need, for those who want to report to the government, there is nothing tangible that you say, I have open science, I'm doing the open science, except what we see is that we have open access, some services also, but nothing beyond that. That's why I think we need to have a common understanding at the regional level. And now at the national level, again, depends on the policy. And I have to announce, to refer to an announcement that has been yesterday announced between the European Open Science Cloud and GIANT, the European Research and Education Network. They realized, they tried to establish EOSC away from GIANT, away from the Regional Research and Education Network. And they realized that they have to work with GIANT, and there are major role now it has been added back to GIANT instead of EOSC. So EOSC is a good model, and that's all, but it's very complicated that they could not implement any specific, any actually tangible step except some calls for some, let's say, calls for research or open access, open science activities. But in general, you have to rely on a regional organization like GIANT and for our region. And I believe that ASIN will be the right convener if we want to see how GIANT and Europe had actually stepped back and engaged again, GIANT again. So for us, I believe it's a matter of having a regional convener. Now, the convener will bring all stakeholders together. So stakeholder on who's responsible for policy, who's responsible for data repository, who's responsible for, let's say, infrastructure and so on. Everyone, all have to come into one table. So this table has to be, for us, I believe, for the Arab region, it will go through the ASRIN. Of course, we have the main player and the main, let's say, the right stakeholder and the regional stakeholders, again, Association of Universities and the Federation of Arab Scientific Research Council. They will be the dictator, not the dictator, actually, who will be doing the regional policies and so on.
Thank you. And Professor Salama, your organization has been running at a very large regional level for a very long time, and you're very familiar with open science, and you deal with an awful lot of policymakers. So what would you, as the head of the Universities Association, what would you like to see national policymakers support and advocate for? And are there any institutional policies you'd like to see implemented at university level?
Okay, thank you. Yes, I understand that, because I don't know why that my link here is bad, but I can't. But I understand that. But you need to know about the national policymakers, how they support and advocate for open science, and I think that we'd like to see the national policymakers advocate for stronger support for open science by prioritizing policies that promote open access to publicly funded research and foster collaboration across national borders, and of course enhance the infrastructure of data sharing and preservation. This should include establishing national repositories for research outputs and creating incentives for researchers to publish in open access formats. At the institutional level, we would encourage the implementation, of course, of policies that mandate open data sharing, reward open science practices in career development, and provide training for researchers on open science tools and methodologies to ensure widespread adoption and sustainability. And I think these are the main points which I would like to see. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm not going to direct the follow-up to that question. I want to see if, does anyone else have anything to add onto that? Oh, is there anything that any of you would like to see for your specific stakeholders that you think could and should be supported by national policymakers, and how would you see that happening? Kamran.
Start off that question. I think, so policy at one side is important, infrastructure is important, but also the importance of that grassroots movements, initiatives coming from the community as important. And when these two meet together, that's where the magic happens. So when you've got that body, that interest from the community, active community, an aware community about the best practices, the policy, the requirements. The reason why we're going for openness, like when we talk about open science, we're not just talking about open access, and we're not just talking about APCs. We just had a conversation earlier that whenever, for example, there's a conversation that comes up in, for example, the university, it's around like the APCs and the open access, but we need to look at the common goal. And the common goal is to remove barriers, is to increase accessibility, is to increase discoverability. We talked about Arabic literature not available to the world. So the translation and making that content available is equally as important. So when the grassroots events, activities, and the movement meets with the policymakers, that's where, as I said, the magic happens. So from our side, we're trying a lot to create awareness, build that capacity through the annual conference, through the membership, through the monthly activities, to create those strong national networks or champions within each of the countries, that when the ASRINs and the Arabic universities share the policies, share the best practices. The community is ready for adoption, and then we will see a bigger impact of all the work that is being done. So this is just to kickstart your question.
Thank you. Dr. Yousef, Dr. Hadir, Dr. Lamis, anyone wish to respond to this around policy making?
Maybe I see more collaboration. We today see Madar, it has a repository for 2 universities. More university may use this repository. It will be more valuable. I think more collaboration we need, and more awareness to all the researchers. We're still afraid of open access. We are still afraid of stealing our work. So we need more awareness and justice.
Dr. Yousef?
There is something they call, someone is riding the wave. So the wave is there. People, it's one of the mandates in the global level. Like some people, SDGs, they try to say, we do SDGs and so on. What do you do exactly? And what do you deliver? I believe anyone who is engaged in want to engage in open science, you have to, what he is going to deliver. What he is going to deliver. If I'm a funding organization, I want to see what I want to, for example, I bring someone, I want to give you some funding for your open science. What exactly do you want to give me? This is, I think, everyone who says that I'm in the open science, what are you exactly going to deliver? I believe open science is more into culture, more into doing a new way of doing research, a new way of access, a new way of services. Everything is in you. So we have to be not only to be the top of the wave, but also to make use that a lot of work to be done. It's not only at the end of the day. I started my ride always says open access is not open science is not open access, and it was also by Dr. Hilali open. So I don't want all of us to end up with that. It's open access. Please, open science is much more than that. Open data, open hardware. It's open hardware. When you say open science, it's even open hardware. So it's a culture. It's something beyond what we are thinking. So my call is that everyone, yes, I agree with you, awareness and so on. But what exactly let's say, at ASRIN, we know what do we mean by open science. We want to make science available to the community. We want it to be accessible through the access mechanism. As we know, what do we want to do for open science? But I mean the stakeholders. We want to bring all stakeholders as a convener for them to exchange and see everyone, the role of everyone. And this is one of our mandates in the project. We want to promote the right culture and the right roles. And actually, we are doing a conference this at the end of mid-December in Tunisia, and I invite you all to be there. We have at least 2 or 3 sessions about open science. One of the sessions is about the role, the actual role, and not the role, the roles and the responsibilities of the stakeholders. So I believe we want to know, we know our roles, and we need to know our responsibilities, and we need to achieve and to submit, to deliver. If we want the delivery, what are you going to deliver? I'm sorry taking much time, but I stop here.
Thank you. It's a very, very rounded discussion. So thank you. You've covered a lot of points. And Dr. Lamis, I know you've got another viewpoint as well. So please do share.
Yeah, actually, I wanted to echo on what Dr. Yousef said, but I want to expand it more. I think the conversation should not just be between the stakeholders, because unfortunately, a lot of the time, the stakeholders, I don't know, there's sort of like a separation or a barrier between the grassroots researchers and the, scholars and the academics that are currently working in the lab and in the field, and the stakeholders. So what I'm afraid of, of that, all the wonderful projects and activities that the stakeholders are engaging with would finally, eventually not be useful for the academics and the researchers. So I think, like, if you ask me, I think the very first step should be that the stakeholders engage with the graduate researchers and see what are their challenges, what are they, suffering from the current publishing system, and then, build the policies and build the tools that, first of all, address those unique challenges that, our Arab scholars have, and then maybe, move to other projects. And the other thing that unfortunately, this is something that is happening and have been happening a lot, is that, everyone wants to, or most stakeholders want to do everything on their own, For example, let's say, for example, Aaron, we are happy to provide training. So why don't we, like also Dr. Yousef said something, bring everything that we have on the table, each organization or each stakeholders, just bring out what they currently have, what they could offer now. And I think this will first cut the cost much, much more, and second of all, make us reach our goals faster, So these are the two things that I wanted to say, engaging with the grassroots and making sure that we, every policy is really addressed to their needs. And this is this will help them accept these changes better, because they can see that these open science practices are actually answering to a real problem that they have, instead of, making policies that force them to do something probably that they're not really convinced of, or the usefulness of. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Lamis. And unfortunately, we're pretty much out of time. This was a very short roundtable just to sort of get the ball rolling and set the scene for future discussions. But I think your point about everyone putting everything on the table and maybe, carving up individual responsibilities towards the greater good in a sort of a larger collaboration is a very interesting one. And hopefully one that perhaps various of you will pick up and discuss individually and have individual collaborative talks over the next few days, because that is why we're having this event, is for all of you to meet and mingle and form partnerships. So I just want to thank all of our panelists, Professor Salama, Dr. Lamis, Kamran, Dr. Yousef, Dr. Hadia. Thank you all so much for joining us. And we would have loved to have had all afternoon to talk about this. We could have gone through all of these questions, I'm sure, for a good 3 or 4 hours, and maybe we'll manage to schedule something a little meatier next year. But thank you all. And if you have any questions for our lovely panelists, we have another roundtable now, so they won't be taking questions here, but I'm sure you can corner them during the lunch and coffee breaks. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.